Listen, there's no denying that what we eat is important, especially when it comes to optimizing our pretty cool meat suit for both the here and now and the long haul. But that importance gets put on straight up steroids when you mix it with the other longevity promising habit of strategic meal timing, aka consuming your energy in a specific window each and every day. And guess what? Out of all of the macronutrients, the one that everyone likes to fight about on the internet, protein seems to be the trickiest to master. Until now, that is. Oh, and don't do steroids. It was a metaphor. Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and longevity and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic manner. Today, we are exploring how I was straight up leaving cellular and metabolic efficiency on the table with my suboptimal protein strategy while intermittent fasting, and how not to make the same mistakes I did. But to do that and to have it stick, we first need to talk about the many misconceptions when it comes to daily protein consumption. So the plan for this video is to first highlight protein's underappreciated role in longevity, dive into 3 aspects that are critical for optimizing its daily benefits, timing, quantity, and quality, and finally review how I tweaked my fasting strategy to increase my odds, likelihood, and probability of a long, healthy, prosperous life. The good news is, a few strategic tweaks yourself can take your bathroom flexing game to a whole another level. And that right there makes it all worth it. And I guess being a more functional, healthy you for the rest of your life is kind of cool too. So without further ado, let's talk about why protein is mandatory for optimizing longevity and why the recommended daily allowance is actually wrong. The importance and the misconceptions. Yep, you heard that right. Wrong for longevity. And here's why. It is little known that the recommended daily allowance, or RDA, is the minimum intake needed to prevent a deficiency. In other words, the RDA of 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight is the minimum needed for individuals to not exhibit the symptoms of protein deficiency, such as loss of muscle mass, hair, and nails, weakening bones, and overall metabolic dysfunction. But here's the thing. Preventing deficiency does not equal optimizing the human body. In fact, there happens to be a fair amount of evidence suggesting that twice the RDA is actually the optimal level for overall health and skeletal muscular health in adults. This is mainly due to its critical signaling and functional role for metabolic processes such as muscle protein synthesis, or the process of protein being used to build and repair muscle. Something that we humans tend to get more inefficient at as we age. Yeah, not cool. You see, one of the magical byproducts of aging is the shift from muscle growth being driven by hormones to being driven by dietary protein. And in particular, the quality and quantity of dietary protein. Meaning, when we are young and juiced up on growth hormones, we can compensate for a suboptimal diet and maintain things like skeletal muscle mass without a strategy. But this changes when we exit young adulthood and enter the use it or lose it era of our life. An era that is championed by the onset of natural muscle deterioration, aka scarpopenia, and only avoided with activity like strength training and proper nutrition, aka good protein intake. And for you longevity geeks out there, here's a little bit of what's happening under the covers. Amino acids are the building blocks of protein, and there are 9 essential ones that we humans cannot synthesize in-house. Thus, we need to eat them, or drink them, consume them. There we go. Research has shown that as we age, there is an increase in the dietary requirement for essential amino acids to produce a positive response in muscle protein synthesis. Essentially, what this means is the effectiveness of amino acids to stimulate muscle protein metabolism decreases, requiring either more total protein or a greater nutrient density of those essential amino acids. Whoa, I know. This actually has me contemplating whether we need a mid-vid protein break in all these YouTubes now, in the name of longevity. This brings us to our next major flaw in the way we account for protein consumption. Yeah, there's another one. The failure to recognize that dietary protein needs are an absolute number and typically inversely proportional to energy intake. Meaning, if our overall calories decrease, in all likelihood, protein should increase. The problem here is that current guidelines present protein needs as a percentage of energy in proportion to carbohydrates and fat, when in reality, protein needs are a function of lean tissue mass and must stay somewhere in the 0.7 to 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, even when somebody is embarking on a low energy diet for something like weight loss. And I'll be honest, this was something that I certainly was not keen on before digging into the data on the topic. So it's important to understand that absolute protein requirements, aka grams per day, relate to body weight and remain virtually constant across all energy intakes. I mean, on the bright side, just think about all the algebra time it saves us. Speaking of math, let's take a deeper look into the current data highlighting protein's role in our main objective here, longevity. The data. Throughout the past decade, a growing body of research has revealed that dietary protein intakes above the RDA, recommended daily allowance, are beneficial in maintaining muscle function and mobility, and in the treatment of diseases including obesity, osteoporosis, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, heart disease, and sarcopenia. And yeah, no, I noticed too. A lot of big names on that list. And as we know from this video and many more on the topic, muscle is literally our best friend when it comes to fighting off the diseases of aging and staying as functional as possible for as long as possible. Huh? What was that? And look cool in our underwear too? I mean, duh. That's a given. And here's the thing. Adequate protein consumption is not only a driver of all that, but a necessity. However, it may surprise you, that is not all it does. It also influences cellular signaling, satiety, thermogenesis, and glycemic regulation when certain plasma and intracellular levels of amino acids are hit. Remember that. We're going to come back to it in just a minute. The most interesting and surprising thing of all this is the fact that the data suggests not only is protein quantity important, but quantity and distribution on a per meal basis is critical. Which brings us to timing and the two Q's, quantity and quality. As I alluded to before, when we are young, it seems as if uneven meal distribution of protein does not adversely affect growth. This is likely due to that constant hormone-induced anabolic state those young whippersnappers constantly find themselves in. Little Grandpa Lou Rugrats reference. If you know, you know. However, as we discussed, once we hit our 30s, the quantity and quality of protein at individual meals becomes rather important. Research suggests that adults need a minimum of 15 grams of essential amino acids or 30 grams of total protein per meal to fully stimulate skeletal muscle protein synthesis. This is the minimum to breach what is known as the leucine threshold, or an essential amino acid which triggers the activation of the cellular growth pathway mTOR, the pathway which controls the synthesis of muscle proteins. Now, despite first instinct, just going ham on all the protein all at once is not an optimal strategy either, as the consumption of greater amounts of dietary protein per meal, measured by over 40 grams, may further improve net protein synthesis, but it seems to hit a max benefit at somewhere around 60 grams, thus making it advantageous to spread your protein intake across meals. Let's dive back into the data. It's suggestive that for adults, at least 30 grams of total protein should be consumed at more than one meal, especially breakfast, because the body is likely in a catabolic state after overnight fasting, meaning it's likely breaking down protein for energy. So kicking the day off with a 30 plus gram meal is a habit worth considering. In fact, a recent study looked into how humans respond to an even and uneven distribution of protein across 3 meals. The even group consumed 30 grams for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, while the uneven group consumed 10 grams for breakfast, 15 for lunch, and 65 for dinner, what I would consider more like standard Western eating habits. And after measuring the 24-hour protein synthesis response in both groups, researchers found that the muscle protein synthesis rate was 25% higher in the evenly distributed group compared to the uneven. Damn. All I can say is, I've been doing it wrong for a long time, but we'll get to that. Lastly, a word on quality. As we indirectly saw, different amino acids do different things, or flip different cellular and metabolic switches. And guess what? Conveniently, all food has a different amino acid profile. Well, so much for skipping the math. Foods that contain all 9 of the essential amino acids are considered complete proteins. And when it comes down to it, animal proteins seem to be both the most complete and the most easily absorbed by the body. But that doesn't mean one can't survive and thrive following a plant-based way of eating. It just takes a little bit more attention while building meals and supplementing. Some complete protein foods include red meat, poultry, fish, eggs, dairy, soy, quinoa, and buckwheat. And I know that you guys already know, but I'll remind you, if possible, real whole foods are the way to go. Organic, wild, grass-fed, and free range. It is all about quality, quality, quality. So do your best. When it's all said and done, the rough guidelines to aim for as an adult looking to optimize the longevity of their pretty cool meat suit would be around 1.6 grams per kilogram or 0.8 grams per pound of body weight of high quality protein consumption per day. Ideally spread across 2 to 3 30 to 60 gram meals, with a solid high protein meal for the breaking of your fast. Break, fast, breakfast. Speaking of fasts, and being a pretty serious intermittent faster myself with a rather slim daily window, here's what my new strategy looks like. My strategy. First off, after finally diving deep into the data, I can only hope that my consistent resistance training made up for the years of dropping the protein ball with my fasting strategy. Okay, it was only like half the ball, but still, as you may or may not know, for the past 5 years, in an effort to optimize longevity, along with day-to-day mood, feel, and function, I've been eating exclusively early, or what I like to call rebelling against dinner, finishing all of my energy consumption by 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and embarking on a 20-ish hour fast before breaking it at around 10 a.m. the next day. And you can get all of the details on the how and the why of this protocol right here. Now, as it pertains to protein, for quite a while through this early eating endeavor, my main focus was on total consumption, aiming for around 120 to 150 grams per day. And I would end up consuming the majority of that within a single hour window. Looking back, knowing what we know now, although ambitious, it was obviously not optimal, especially when looking to maximize the response of my daily strength training. But this is part of the longevity game. We learn and we tweak. So in an attempt to keep my 20-ish hour fasting window each and every day, I've made an intentional change in 2 main areas: timing and quantity distribution. I now open my window with a high protein meal first, typically pushing the upper limit of the documented benefits with around 60 grams. From there, in the middle of my window, about an hour and a half later, I enjoy a lot of my light snacks, like fruit, along with another 30 to 40 grams of solid protein. And now at the end of my window, which is now extended just a tad to 5 and sometimes 5.5 hours, I've been closing with another protein-focused meal. Again, touching that upper limit of 60 grams, leaving me with an average of 150 grams per day or 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, which happens to be double the RDA. The new focus has been on starting strong and finishing strong with protein. And life. Hopefully that too. Now, is this the optimal strategy for someone looking for max growth? No, but that's not my goal. And as you know, protocols and strategies are very goal dependent. My goal is to maximize longevity. I don't want cellular growth pathways to be turned on 24/7. I want them strategically turned on and circadian aligned with when we are optimized to consume and metabolize energy. Which, as a side note, would be super interesting to see how protein synthesis efficiency changes at different times throughout the day, as preliminary animal data does suggest that muscle also operates on a circadian clock. However, the question is, how does the response to a high protein meal at 9 in the morning compared to 9 in the evening differ? I would hypothesize that it does. But at this point, it's nothing more than dubious speculation. Anyway, moral of the story, if you are interested in optimizing your pretty cool meat suit to the max, protein is shaping up to be a necessity, not a nice to have. And like I said in the open, when you mix in a time-restricted feeding or intermittent fasting protocol, your strategy here needs to be even more intentional. And if you need a little extra help staying on track, you can join the longevity challenges in Patreon, where we as a team implement longevity-focused sustainable change week by week, habit by habit, focusing on getting healthy from the inside out. If interested, you can find all of the links for that in the description below. When it comes down to it, this is an area that a lot of people miss on, especially the aging adult population, even people in the health and longevity community. Just saying. So do yourself a favor, live with intent. Know that feeling good, refreshed, restored, rejuvenated on a daily, monthly, yearly basis doesn't just happen. You, the owner of your health, the practitioner of your well-being, need to make it happen. Own it. And maybe put, like, protein breaks in your calendar. You know, just in case.